Everyone remembers the child actor you laughed with on screen, the boy whose face felt like a part of your own childhood. But what if I told you that same actor became part of a case so brutal investigators still speak of it in hushed tones? Behind his familiar smile was a hidden life that spiraled into unimaginable violence. A story that would end with victims dragged overboard by an anchor chain, lost to the darkness below. This is the story of a dream that ended in a nightmare, and how one couple's pursuit of happiness brought them face to face with someone no one suspected. Tom and Jackie Hawks had built a life that many would envy. Their story began in 1986 at a chili cook-off in Newport Beach, California. Tom, a father of 2 teenage boys and a former probation officer, was drawn to Jackie's warmth and resilience. Jackie had survived a serious motorcycle accident that left her unable to have children, but she embraced the role of stepmother wholeheartedly. Tom's sons quickly accepted her as mom, and together, they formed a close-knit family. Their bond deepened over the years, strengthened by shared challenges and a commitment to each other. From the start, Tom and Jackie were united by a clear vision for their future. They wanted a retirement filled with adventure and freedom, and they set about making that dream a reality. Both were practical and disciplined, saving diligently and planning every step. Their goal was ambitious: to one day buy a yacht and spend their days exploring the California and Mexican coastlines. For years, they lived modestly, putting away every extra dollar, always keeping their eyes on the horizon. In 2002, after decades of careful saving and planning, Tom and Jackie finally reached their goal. With their sons grown and out of the house, they sold their home in Newport Beach. The proceeds, combined with their savings, allowed them to purchase a yacht they named the Well-Deserved. This boat wasn't just a possession, it was a symbol of everything they had worked for. They moved their belongings on board and made the yacht their home, ready to start the next chapter of their lives. Life on the Well-Deserved was everything they had hoped for. For 2 years, Tom and Jackie sailed up and down the coast, anchoring in quiet coves and visiting small towns. They spent their days fishing, watching dolphins ride the waves, and sharing simple meals on deck as the sun set over the water. Friends recall stories of Tom reeling in a yellowtail for dinner, while Jackie snapped photos of the sky turning pink and orange. Even as they embraced this new lifestyle, their connection to family remained strong. They checked in with their sons regularly, sharing updates and photos, never letting distance weaken their ties. Everything changed in 2004 when Tom and Jackie learned they would soon become grandparents. One of their sons called with the news, and their excitement was immediate. The idea of being close to family, of watching their grandchild grow up, became more important than any adventure at sea. They decided to sell the yacht and buy a house on land, so they could be present for this new chapter. In November 2004, Tom placed an ad in a fishing magazine, listing the Well-Deserved for sale for around $500,000. It was a difficult decision, but for Tom and Jackie, family always came first. The response to their ad came quickly. A young couple reached out, expressing interest in buying the yacht. Tom and Jackie were hopeful. They spoke with their sons about the potential buyers, sharing their optimism about the sale and the plans they were making for life on land. Before agreeing to anything, Tom and Jackie took their usual precautions, vetting the couple as best they could. Nothing about the buyers seemed out of the ordinary. The couple even brought their baby along when they came to see the yacht, which put Tom and Jackie at ease. The meeting went smoothly, and the Hawks felt good about moving forward. They called their sons after the showing, excited about the prospect of finalizing the deal. The couple seemed friendly and genuine, and Tom and Jackie were already thinking about the next steps, finding a new home, preparing for their grandchild's arrival, and settling into a quieter life surrounded by family. To everyone who knew them, it looked like everything was falling into place. But beneath the surface, there were small details that didn't quite add up. The buyer's story had a few inconsistencies, but nothing that raised immediate red flags. Tom and Jackie, known for their caution and good judgment, had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. When the couple asked to meet again for a sea trial, a routine step before closing a sale, the Hawks agreed. It was a sunny November day when Tom and Jackie prepared to take the yacht out with the buyers. They told their sons about the plans and promised to check in afterward. That was the last time anyone heard from them. When the calls and messages stopped, concern in the Hawks family grew quickly. Tom and Jackie were never out of touch for long, and their silence was alarming. Days passed with no word. Their sons tried to reach them, but there was no response. The sense of unease deepened as time went on. Eventually, they reported their parents missing, and the search for answers began. As investigators started piecing together the final days before Tom and Jackie vanished, attention turned to the couple interested in buying the well-deserved. What had seemed like a straightforward sale now looked far more complicated. The buyers' backgrounds became a point of focus. Who were they really? What had they been hiding behind polite smiles and friendly conversation? The story of Tom and Jackie Hawks, so full of hope and careful planning, had taken a dark and unexpected turn. The next step was to look more closely at the people who had entered their lives under the guise of a simple business transaction. One name in particular would soon stand out. A buyer who seemed unremarkable at first, but whose past was anything but ordinary. Skylar DeLeon arrived at the marina with his wife Jennifer and their baby, presenting the image of a young family eager for a new adventure. He didn't draw attention to himself. He spoke softly, smiled easily, and listened more than he talked. Jennifer, visibly pregnant, exuded a calm confidence that put others at ease. Their baby was quiet and curious, and the sight of the young family seemed to erase any doubts Tom and Jackie Hawks might have had about the sale. The DeLeons spoke about dreams of raising their child on the water, exploring new places and building memories. It was a story that resonated with the Hawks, who saw in the couple a reflection of their own hopes for the future. The Hawks, careful as always, did their best to vet the buyers. Skylar and Jennifer's story checked out on the surface. They talked about their plans and explained how they could afford the yacht. Skylar claimed his funds came from his early days as a child actor, saying he had appeared as an extra on the popular 1990s show, Power Rangers. He hinted that his brief brush with television had given him the financial means to pursue this new life. The story made sense, at least at first glance, and the Hawks felt reassured by the young family's apparent stability. What the Hawks didn't know was that Skylar's story about his acting career was only the first in a series of shifting explanations. When investigators later pressed him, Skylar admitted that the money he used for the yacht wasn't from his television work. Instead, he confessed to stealing it from a drug kingpin, a crime that had already led to a conviction for armed robbery. The reality of his financial situation was far removed from the impression he gave on the dock. He was not just struggling, he was desperate, and that desperation had already pushed him into dangerous territory before he ever met the Hawks. Jennifer's role in the deception was crucial. She knew how to present herself as a devoted wife and mother, and her presence helped sell the illusion of a trustworthy family. Bringing their baby to the yacht tour was a calculated move, designed to make Tom and Jackie feel comfortable and safe. The Hawks, who valued family above all else, saw themselves in the DeLeons and wanted to believe in their sincerity. Jennifer reinforced this trust with every smile and gentle word, but beneath her calm exterior, she was fully aware of Skylar's intentions. She played her part with precision, never giving the Hawks any reason to suspect that something was wrong. During their meetings, Skylar continued to charm the Hawks. He talked about his admiration for the well-deserved and how he hoped to create lasting memories for his family on the water. Tom and Jackie were drawn to the idea of another couple finding happiness aboard the yacht they loved. They left their conversations with the DeLeons feeling optimistic, never suspecting that the couple's story was built on lies. Yet, there were subtle signs that something was off. Skylar's explanations about his finances didn't always line up, and his story shifted when questioned. He was convincing, though, using skills he'd picked up as a performer to smooth over inconsistencies. When doubt surfaced, He quickly offered reassurances, and Jennifer's steady presence seemed to confirm his honesty. The act was convincing enough to keep the Hawks' guard down. After the second meeting with the DeLeons, Tom and Jackie disappeared. Their family grew worried when calls went unanswered. When police began investigating, they quickly noticed gaps in Skylar's story. He had taken possession of the Hawks' SUV soon after their disappearance, even though he told investigators he hadn't seen them since the yacht showing. This contradiction was only the beginning. A search of the DeLeons' home revealed some of Tom and Jackie's personal belongings, evidence that linked the couple directly to the missing Hawks. The family-friendly image Skylar and Jennifer had crafted began to unravel. For the Hawks' loved ones, these discoveries were devastating. What had started as a promising new chapter for Tom and Jackie had become a nightmare. The trust they had placed in the DeLeons was shattered by the growing body of evidence. The buyers, who seemed so ordinary and sincere, were now the focus of a criminal investigation. Skylar DeLeon was not the harmless young father he appeared to be. His past was marked by criminal acts and a willingness to manipulate those around him. Jennifer, far from being an innocent bystander, was an active part of the deception. The facade they presented of a loving, adventurous family was designed to hide their true intentions. The details uncovered by investigators pointed to a far more sinister plan than anyone could have imagined. The question remained, how did someone who once appeared on television as a child actor end up at the center of such a brutal and calculated crime? What happened between the fleeting fame of his youth and the tragedy that unfolded on the Hawks' yacht? To understand how Skylar DeLeon's life took such a dark turn, we have to look back at the beginning, at the early years that shaped him, and the choices that led him from the spotlight to infamy, to provide for himself and his growing family. This desperation led Skylar down a path of criminal activity. What began as small, questionable schemes soon escalated. He became involved in an armed robbery, a crime that was tied to stealing money from a drug kingpin. This wasn't a petty theft or a crime of opportunity. It was a deliberate and risky act. The conviction for armed robbery sent him to jail, marking the first clear sign that Skylar was willing to cross serious lines for money. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking control in a life that felt out of his grasp. After serving his time, Skylar didn't turn away from crime. Instead, he started to think bigger. The armed robbery conviction had shown him what he was capable of and, if anything, seemed to embolden him. He became more calculated, looking for ways to pull off larger schemes that could solve his financial problems once and for all. The need for money and the willingness to do whatever it took to get it became the driving force behind his decisions. By the time he met Tom and Jackie Hawks, Skylar had crafted a new persona. He presented himself as a responsible young father, eager to start a new life on the water with his wife and child. He talked about his past in Hollywood, hinting at financial security from his days as a child actor. But the truth was very different. His finances were in shambles, and he was looking for a way to launder the money he had stolen from the drug kingpin. Buying and reselling a yacht seemed like the perfect solution, a way to clean the money and give his family the fresh start he claimed to want. Jennifer played a key role in maintaining this illusion. She appeared every bit the supportive wife and loving mother, helping to reassure the Hawks that their buyers were trustworthy. Together, Skylar and Jennifer convinced Tom and Jackie that they were simply a young family chasing a dream. In reality, every detail of their story was carefully constructed to gain trust and access. Skylar's ability to manipulate those around him became one of his most dangerous traits. He used the charm and poise he'd picked up during his brief time in front of the camera to put people at ease. He convinced Jennifer to support his plans and brought in others, like Alonzo Mason, to help carry out his schemes. Even when details didn't add up, Skylar managed to smooth things over with calm explanations and practiced confidence. He was always performing, always adjusting his story to fit the situation.
What set Skylar apart was not just his willingness to break the law,
but his cold calculation. The plan to take the Hawks' yacht was not impulsive. It was methodical, designed to solve his financial problems and eliminate any witnesses who could tie him to the crime. The Hawks were not random victims. They were chosen because their yacht represented exactly what Skylar needed. In his mind, their lives and dreams were obstacles standing between him and his own goals. As investigators would later discover, every step Skylar took was part of a larger pattern. His criminal record, his manipulative charm, and his calculated approach all pointed to someone who had embraced a life of deception and violence. The story he told to the outside world was just that, a story. The reality was far more disturbing. In the days leading up to November 2004, Skylar was focused on executing his plan. He had convinced the Hawks to trust him, arranged the details of the yacht sale, and prepared his accomplices for what was to come. To those around him, he seemed calm and optimistic, but beneath the surface, everything was building toward a single, irreversible act. What happened next would forever change the lives of everyone involved. After the documents were signed, Skylar's next move was clear. He ordered Alonzo to bring the yacht's anchor. Tom and Jackie realized what was coming and pleaded for their lives. They asked Skylar to think of his own child, to show mercy. But their words had no effect. Skylar and his accomplices ignored their pleas. The anchor chain was attached to the Hawks' handcuffs and the couple was positioned back to back. Tom made a desperate attempt to break free, shaking loose from Kennedy's grip and landing a kick to Skylar, but he was quickly subdued again. With everything in place, the anchor was thrown overboard. The chain jerked tight, pulling Tom and Jackie off their feet and over the side of the yacht. Alonzo later testified that both were alive and conscious as they hit the water. Jackie's head struck the side of the boat on the way down, the sound echoing across the deck. The anchor dragged them beneath the surface, and in those final moments, there was nothing but the cold, dark water and the weight of the chain. On deck, Skylar let out a loud "woo-hoo" and laughed, showing no remorse for what had just happened. The perpetrators acted as if they had accomplished something worth celebrating. When the yacht returned to the dock, Skylar's demeanor was unchanged. Jennifer greeted him and the others with the baby, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. Together, they packed up and left, carrying with them not just the Hawks' signatures, but the illusion that they could erase what they'd done. Jennifer's role, though she was not physically present on the boat during the murders, was crucial. She had helped plan the attack, used her baby to gain the Hawks' trust, and stayed in constant communication with Skylar throughout the ordeal. Her involvement was not passive. She was an active participant in every stage of the crime. In the days that followed, the Hawks' sudden silence sent a ripple of concern through their family. Tom and Jackie were never out of touch for long, and their sons quickly realized something was wrong. The truth of what happened on that November day would not stay hidden for long. Small details, the misspelled name, the missing yacht, the inconsistencies in the DeLeon story would soon begin to surface. The disappearance of Tom and Jackie Hawks marked the beginning of a search for answers that would draw in not just their family, but law enforcement and the public as well. The illusion of a routine sale had shattered, and what remained was a case that demanded justice. Jim Hawks, a retired police chief and Tom's brother, grew uneasy when Tom and Jackie stopped returning calls. The couple's routines were predictable, and silence from them was out of character. Jim drove to the marina and boarded the well-deserved. He found lines left carelessly tied and dirty towels hanging out of a porthole, details that Tom, always meticulous, would never have allowed. Jim immediately contacted the Newport Beach Police Department and filed a missing persons report. This set the investigation in motion. Police began by interviewing the yacht's new owners, Skylar and Jennifer DeLeon. The DeLeons claimed Tom and Jackie had sold them the boat and then left for a spontaneous trip to Mexico. Skylar produced paperwork showing the transfer of ownership, and both Jennifer and a notary, Kathleen Harris, supported his account. At first, the police suspected fraud or money laundering, not murder. The story seemed plausible on the surface, but as detectives dug deeper, inconsistencies started to appear. Skylar's background quickly became a focus. His prior conviction for armed robbery raised suspicions. During questioning, Skylar first claimed his money for the yacht came from his brief stint as a child actor on Power Rangers. When pressed, he admitted the funds were actually stolen drug money. This confession led to his arrest for money laundering, but police decided not to pursue those charges right away since Skylar was cooperating and providing information about the yacht sale. Still, none of this explained what had happened to Tom and Jackie. The investigation took a major turn when Kathleen Harris, the notary, was brought in for further questioning. Under pressure, she admitted her signature on the sale documents was a lie. She had never met Tom or Jackie Hawks. Skylar had paid her to backdate the paperwork and fabricate the sale. This confession was the pivotal break in the case, exposing the fraudulent nature of the DeLeon story and shifting the investigation from a financial crime to something much more serious. Detectives then questioned Alonzo Machain, a friend of Skylar's who had been present during the Yacht C trial. Initially, Alonzo repeated the story of a legitimate sale, but after being confronted with the notary's confession and offered a reduced sentence in exchange for the truth, Alonzo changed his account. He revealed that Skylar had described himself as an international assassin and promised Alonzo $1 million to help kill Tom and Jackie Hawks. Alonzo's confession included a detailed account of the events on the yacht, how he, Skylar, and John Kennedy ambushed the couple, handcuffed them, and forced them to sign over their assets. He described Jackie's deliberate misspelling of her last name on the documents as a secret signal that something was wrong. Alonzo also recounted the anchor chain murder, explaining how Tom and Jackie were thrown overboard alive, bound to the yacht's anchor. As the police pieced together the timeline, Jennifer DeLeon's involvement became clear. She had suggested targeting the Hawks in the first place, seeing their yacht and retirement savings as an opportunity. Jennifer played a key role in building trust with Tom and Jackie, using her baby to put them at ease, and orchestrating the meeting at the dock. Her actions were not those of a bystander. She was a planner and an active participant. Evidence continued to mount. When police searched Skylar's home, they found personal belongings belonging to Tom and Jackie, items that had no reason to be there if the sale had been legitimate. Investigators also recovered the Hawks' personal video camera. The footage showed Tom and Jackie in the days before the murder, talking about their excitement for retirement and their plans to be grandparents. Later footage, recorded after the murders, showed Skylar and Jennifer using the camera as if nothing had happened. The contrast between the two sets of footage was stark and deeply unsettling. The trial brought all of these details into the open. Alonzo Machain's cooperation and testimony were crucial to the prosecution's case, and in exchange, he received a 20-year prison sentence. Jennifer DeLeon was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the third accomplice on the boat, was sentenced to death. Skylar DeLeon, described as the mastermind behind the murders, was also sentenced to death. The sentences reflected the calculated brutality of the crime. For the Hawks family, the court's decisions brought some measure of accountability, but the loss was overwhelming. Tom and Jackie's sons, along with Jim and the rest of the family, faced a future without their parents. The details of the crime and the deception that led up to it made the loss even harder to bear. The Hawks' dream of a peaceful retirement and a growing family was destroyed in a single calculated act of violence. This case left a lasting impact, not just on the family, but on everyone who followed the investigation. It raised difficult questions about trust, appearances, and the motivations that drive people to commit such acts. The courtroom sentences closed one chapter, but the story continued to haunt those involved. Could Skylar DeLeon's fall from grace have been prevented? The deeper story reveals unsettling truths. Understanding how Skylar DeLeon's public image as a child actor masked his later actions means looking closely at the psychological toll early fame can take. The gap between who he appeared to be and who he became is not just a detail of this crime. It sits at the heart of the story. For Skylar, the transition from minor television appearances to adult life was marked by instability and a growing sense of desperation. Skylar entered the entertainment world as a young teenager. He landed a few small roles, including a brief appearance as an extra on Power Rangers. The work was sporadic and the money didn't last, but the experience put him in front of cameras and gave him a taste of public attention. For many child actors, these early years come with praise and recognition, but they rarely come with guidance or preparation for what happens when the spotlight fades. In Skylar's case, the end of his acting days left him with no financial cushion and no clear direction. That lack of support is a common thread for many young performers. Without adult mentors or a strong support network, child actors can struggle to adapt to regular life. The public may remember their faces, but the opportunities dry up quickly, and the skills needed for a sustainable career outside Hollywood aren't always there. For Skylar, the loss of even minor fame left him feeling adrift. The money he earned as a teenager disappeared, and by adulthood, he was facing mounting bills and limited job prospects. The gap between his public persona and his private reality only widened. This disconnect between outward appearances and internal struggles can lead to a distorted sense of self. In Skylar's case, the pressure to maintain a certain image pushed him to hide his difficulties and present a version of himself that was calm, trustworthy, and successful, even when the truth was very different. Investigators later noted that Skylar's ability to charm and manipulate people was one of his most dangerous traits. These skills, honed in his brief acting career, allowed him to gain trust quickly. He used that trust to his advantage, convincing Tom and Jackie Hawks that he was a responsible young father looking for a new start, when in reality, he was planning a crime. The financial instability that followed Skylar out of Hollywood added another layer of stress. The small amounts of money he made as a child actor disappeared quickly, and there was no steady work to replace it. The desire to regain a sense of control and security became a driving force. When legitimate opportunities failed, Skylar turned to increasingly risky and illegal schemes. First, it was theft and fraud. Then, with the help of accomplices, he escalated to armed robbery and money laundering. Each step was a response to the pressure he felt to maintain appearances and solve his growing financial problems. The skills Skylar developed as a performer, his ability to read people, adapt his story, and present himself in a way that inspired confidence, became tools for manipulation. In the Hawks case, these skills played a central role. He convinced Tom and Jackie that he was just another buyer, a young family man with big dreams. Even when small inconsistencies in his story appeared, he used charm and practiced explanations to smooth them over. This ability to perform, to present a convincing facade, made him especially dangerous. It allowed him to get close to his victims, to gain their trust, and ultimately, to betray them in the worst possible way. Skylar's story is not the only one where early fame led to trouble. Many child actors, after their time in the spotlight, face similar challenges: financial instability, loss of identity, and an inability to adapt to life outside the industry. Without guidance and support, the transition to adulthood can be harsh. The public rarely sees this side of fame, focusing instead on the nostalgia or recognition they feel when they see a familiar face. For Skylar, this disconnect between how he was seen and who he really was contributed to the choices he made. The psychological burden of keeping up a public persona while struggling privately can be heavy. In Skylar's case, the need to maintain appearances overshadowed his ability to seek help or build a stable life. The pressures of early recognition, followed by years of obscurity and financial stress, created an environment where risky and manipulative behaviors could thrive. The result was a series of choices that became more destructive over time. It's important to note that while early fame and lack of support can set the stage for instability, they do not excuse or fully explain the actions Skylar took. His crimes were planned and deliberate, carried out with a level of calculation that went beyond desperation. The manipulative skills he learned as a performer became weapons, used to deceive and ultimately destroy the lives of those who trusted him. What Skylar DeLeon's story shows is how easily a familiar face can hide a reality that is much darker than anyone suspects. The public image of a child actor can create a sense of trust, but that trust can be misplaced. The distance between appearance and reality is sometimes wider than we think. This case forces us to confront the unsettling idea that the people we recognize, the ones we think we know, may be hiding truths we never imagined. The fate of Tom and Jackie Hawks stands as a stark reminder of how trust can be shattered in an instant. The anchor chain that dragged them beneath the waves was not just a tool of violence, it was the final act in a plan built on deception. Their story began with hope for a new chapter and ended with a betrayal that no one saw coming. If this story unsettles you and you want more cases where appearances deceive, subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever sensed something was off about someone you trusted? Share your experiences below.